What's up everybody, Commander Sanctum here, and today we have a brand new deck tech using Eshki Dragonclaw. Eshki is a 4/4 human warrior for 1 green-blue-red with Vigilance, Trample, and Ward 1. She also has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast both a creature and non-creature spell, draw a card and put 2 +1/+1 counters on Eshki. There's one type of card that works really well with Eshki's creature and non-creature spell clause, and that's Adventurers. Adventurer cards are spells that have 2 effects. One is an instant or sorcery that, when cast, is placed into exile, where the other half is a permanent spell, usually a creature, that can then be cast from exile. Since these cards are both creatures and non-creatures in one, they make for perfect spells to cast to meet Eshki's combat trigger requirements. Due to that, we'll be focusing heavily on adventurer cards for this deck tech, alongside other cheap creature and non-creature spells to supplement alongside them. With that, let's get to the card highlights. To start out with our adventure cards, we'll look at a few that are cheap on both the instant or sorcery side as well as the creature side. The cheaper the both sides are, the easier it'll be to cast both in a single turn for Eshki. Curious Pair and Embereth Shieldbreaker are both cards that cost a total of 3 mana, where the creature sides are vanilla, but the adventure side has some sort of useful effect. Grove's Bounty on Elusive Otter can be a great way to get some +1/+1 counters onto our Eshki, more easily putting her into commander damage range the more mana we pump into it. Questing Druid is a great way to get extra card advantage via impulse draws, while also having the capability to become a monster if it stays out long enough on the battlefield. Rosethorn Acolyte is basically pure ramp on both sides of the card, while Kellen Inquisitive Prodigy is a great way to get some extra card draw alongside ramp as well. Kellen even acts as efficient artifact removal on attack, giving us a nice added bonus on the creature side. Bonecrusher Giant, Brazen Borrower, and Scalding Viper all act as decent removal, with the Borrower and Viper being able to bounce non-land permanents, and the Giant being able to shock a creature or opponent. The creature side of these cards are admittedly so-so in what they do, but the important thing is that the adventure side and the creature side are both low in cost, letting us more effectively trigger Eshki's ability whenever we draw them. Finally, there are some more expensive adventurer cards that act as great utility for our overall strategy and theme. Baluna Grand Squall and Tlinkali Hunter both make it easier to cast the creature side of our adventurer cards, with Baluna reducing all of their costs by 1, and the Hunter letting us cast 1 completely for free each turn. These cost reductions are going to be so important, since we want to make sure we get both the adventure and creature side of cards in a single turn as much as possible. There's also Carvanista Loyal Lupari, which is great protection and utility for Eshki herself, since she's a human. Not only does the adventure side give Eshki indestructible when we need it, Carvanista makes our Eshki bigger on attacks thanks to their 1/1 counter ability, which may even hit some of our other creatures who are incidentally also human. For normal creatures that can be cast cheaply, you really can't go wrong with some mana dorks. Not only do these make it easier to cast our adventurer cards, they make it that much easier to trigger Eshki in a single turn too. Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves are 2 creatures that cost a single green and can produce a green mana, making them very effective includes. Rattleclaw Mystic can produce a red, green, or blue mana, and even has a morph ability that can help us mana fix in a single turn in cases where we don't have all the teamer mana we need to get Eshki out on turn 4. To go alongside our cheap creatures, we also have some good choices for cheap card draw. Opt and Ponder are very well-known single mana card draw spells that can easily pair with a cheap creature to get Eshki's combat trigger ready to go. Frantic Search is also basically a free card draw spell, since it'll untap the lands used to cast it, letting us follow it up with, hopefully, a creature spell. Another ability that can work well with Eshki is Foretell. Since Foretell can be cast on a later turn for, usually, less mana, it makes it that much easier to cast a creature and non-creature spell in a single turn. Behold the Multiverse is one such card that becomes cheaper with this Foretell, turning from a 4 mana spell to a 2 mana spell. Surge of Brilliance actually costs the same as its Foretell cost, but cares about how many spells were cast from exile to determine how many cards to draw. Since we cast our adventure cards from exile to get the creature side, this is a great card draw spell to pair with our overall theme. Edgewall Innkeeper is a perfect card draw spell for us, since we're already focusing so heavily on adventure cards. It also only costs a single mana, meaning it's a great cheap creature to get out there for Eshki's trigger. Jori-En Rune Diver is almost like a second Eshki, though cares less about spell types and more about just how many were cast. Still, since we already want to be casting 2 spells in a turn for Eshki, Jori-En is a no-brainer include. While Eshki does have Ward 1, she'll likely be targeted more heavily the bigger she gets. Due to this, we'll want some level of additional protection for her to make sure she's not so easily removed. Both Gaia's Gift and Snakeskin Veil fit with Eshki's theme of +1/+1 counters, giving her another one when targeted, while also giving her better protection from targeted removal via Hexproof. Gaia's Gift even gives a plethora of other keywords, including Indestructible, making her even more resilient to removal effects. Since Eshki's trigger occurs at the beginning of combat, having multiple combat steps in a turn means that she'll trigger multiple times. Seize the Day is one such spell that'll give us an additional combat step in a turn, and even has flashback to do it again if we have enough mana. Eshki having natural vigilance is also beneficial to us, since it'll let us cast Seize in the first main phase to get the most value out of her trigger. Full Throttle does untap creatures, meaning we'll also be able to attack with any other creatures we have out, while giving us 2 additional combat steps instead of 1. Honestly though, the most important part of both of these cards is simply the fact that Eshki's card draw and counter trigger will trigger for each combat, giving us a perpetually larger creature and additional card advantage so long as they're cast in a turn we also cast a creature spell. Finally, there are a number of utility cards that just work well with our overall theme of adventure cards and counters. Temur Battlecrier is a new creature spell from Tarkir Dragonstorm that will be a bomb in pretty much every Temur deck, since it has the capability to reduce all spells we cast by a ton. It's important to remember that this reduces the cost of the adventure side and the creature side, making it likely one of the best cards in the deck. Doc Arlok Grizzled Genius also reduces the cost of our adventurer spells, but only the creature side since it has to be in exile to get the cost reduction. A reduction of 2 mana is still a pretty big deal though, so it's an easy include in the deck. Since the cards that are on an adventure are cast from exile, we can also use cards that care about other cards being cast from exile. Flaming Tyrannosaurus and Passionate Archaeologist are both ways to dome opponents with direct damage in a very quick and effective manner. The Tyrannosaurus even becomes an effective attacker or blocker very quickly, since it gets larger with each exile spell cast. The Lost and the Damned will create a 3/3 spawn whenever a spell is cast from exile, letting us very easily build up a token army. Not to mention, this enchantment also worked with ramp spells, like Rampant Growth, since the land enters from the library, making it a double whammy of effectiveness for us. For cards that care more specifically about adventures, Candlekeep Inspiration is a great way to close out a game, since it'll likely make all creatures we have a huge base power and toughness when cast. Lucky Clover just gives us extreme value, doubling our adventure spells for a low one-time cost of 2 mana. Seriously, this Clover will do work in games, so don't sleep on how effective it can be. Since we have a small +1/+1 counter theme thanks to Eshki's ability, Hardened Scales is a great include to get Eshki as large as possible as quickly as possible. Temur Sabertooth is a great way to get our adventurer creatures back to our hand, letting us recast the adventure spell and creature spell over and over again, all for a low cost of 2 mana. If we could get Temur Sabertooth out on the battlefield, we'll likely never have issues getting our Eshki to trigger for as long as it lives. Here's an example deck list utilizing all the previously mentioned cards. Additional cards include a ton more adventurer cards like Lovestruck Beast and Aquatic Alchemist, cheap removal spells in Pongify and Nature's Claim, and effective creature and non-creature land ramp in Sakura Tribe Elder and Nature's Lore. Eshki Dragonclaw has a few different ways that she could be built, but I think adventurer cards are going to be one of the most thematic and unique ways to go about it. They just work so well. They're a single card that can both act as a non-creature and a creature spell simultaneously. Most of the time when you need to worry about various card types, finding the right balance between them can be difficult. Sometimes you'll draw all your cards of one type and not the other, but you really don't need to worry about that with adventurer cards, since you can cast them as either or whenever you want. You don't even need to cast the same one for both modes. You could cast the adventure side of one card and then cast the creature side of a different one, and you'll still meet Eshki's requirements. Even with how effective this is, however, there will still likely be turns you won't be able to get Eshki's ability off. That's going to be one of the biggest things to note about this deck. It is okay if you don't get Eshki's trigger every turn. Sometimes things just don't line up, and that's fine. It may feel correct to hold back a spell or a mana dork so you can wait to get the other type to maximize value, but more times than not, that may not be the correct thing to do. You'll be setting yourself back if you continually do it throughout the game, so that's something that you should be mindful of. It can be a hard mindset to overcome, but I can pretty much guarantee you it'll work out better in the long run. If you love adventure cards or just want to make a more unique and synergistic Eshki Dragonclaw deck, then this one may be just what you're looking for. I hope you enjoyed watching this deck tech on Eshki Dragonclaw. The full deck list outlined in this video can be found at the Architect link at the top of the description. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like and comment, as well as subscribe to the channel for more Magic content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.